Hello everyone, this is Dalster and welcome to another episode review of Dark Side of the Ring. And in this episode, it focuses on Sensational Sherri, who was also known as Sherri Martel. I actually know a little bit about Sherri, such as her lending her vocals to Shawn Michaels' entrance music Sexy Boy and getting an ankle lock from Kurt Angle. She was a valet for Randy Macho Man Savage and did a lot for women's wrestling. That got her in the WWE Hall of Fame before her untimely death. Unfortunately, when she had passed away, it was around the time Chris Benoit died, and that overshadowed Sherri's passing. Since her passing, there have been conspiracy theories that Sherri and Chris's deaths are connected, but I don't think it's true. I'm also working on Chris Benoit's Dark Side of the Ring episode review, so stay tuned. Anyway, I am definitely looking forward to this episode because I heard Sensational Sherri was a great manager. I'll summarize the episode first before I give my final thoughts, which will be at the end. Sherri was born Sherri Lynn Russell on February 8, 1958, in Birmingham, Alabama. Sherri never knew or met her father. When she was in Mississippi, Sherri saw her first wrestling show and was inspired to be a wrestler herself. She watched more wrestling shows and met Jake the Snake Roberts. They met in 1974 when Sherri was 17 and Jake was 18. Jake never loved Sherri in a romantic way, but he had a special connection with her through the years. There weren't a lot of female wrestlers during Sherri's time, but she wanted to be a wrestler. Sherri went to Grizzly Smith, who was a controversial wrestler, when she was 16 years old. She asked him if she could wrestle for Mid-South Wrestling, which at the time he was working backstage. Grizzly said no until she had turned 21. During that time, before she wrestled in the ring, Sherri met Leroy while she was working in a club as a dancer. Sherri wanted to get out of the job, so she moved in with Leroy, and he proposed to her. While living with him, Sherri partied a lot and used tons of drugs, causing arguments between her and Leroy. At first, Sherri wanted to start a family, and she eventually gave birth in July 1978 to a boy named Jared. After that, she left the baby when Jared was 3 months old and worked as an exotic dancer in Memphis so that Sherri could save money for her wrestling career. She decided to not be a mother as she left her son in the care of Leroy and his other wife. When she began her time in Memphis, she went to a wrestling school and asked a guy named Butch Moore if she could be trained, and he slaps Sherri. Then she responds with, "Is that all you got?" Sherri threw her license at him and said that wrestling is the career that she really wanted to do, and Butch finally agreed for her to wrestle. She was driven to be a wrestler in a male-dominated area during the early 1980s. Jim Cornette mentions in this episode that he and Sherri worked together as they had just started out in the wrestling business. At times, Sherri stayed at Grizzly Smith's house, but there were rumors that Grizzly Smith liked the younger girls. But I don't know if anything ever happened between Sherri and Grizzly Smith, which I don't think nothing ever happened to her. Soon after, Grizzly thought that Sherri needed more training, so he sent her to Fabulous Moolah's school. Moolah was a champion for over 30 years and held the women's division down because she wanted to be champion for as long as she could. Her training was similar to military training, only for the female trainees. Sherri got herself kicked out of the school for partying all night long as Moolah had strict curfews. She went back to Memphis, but Leroy wanted Sherri to come back home and raise their son, so he hired someone to track her down. One day, as he was making a bank deposit at night, 2 men followed Leroy. They told Leroy that Sherri belonged to them and the wrestling business, so Leroy backed off. As she wrestled and left Japan and Mid-South Wrestling, she worked at AWA, American Wrestling Association, as a wrestler and a manager. There were hardly any women wrestling in AWA at the time, only Sherri and a woman named Deborah, who is also known as Alondra Blaze or Medusa in wrestling. Deborah looked up to Sherri and was told by her that Sherri's son was away. Deborah explains in the episode that having a child as a woman wrestler was frowned upon and that they sacrificed so much for the business. In this episode, we see Jared, Sherri's son, as he is not in good health and is said to have lung cancer. Jared said that he wants no pity while being interviewed and wants people to not judge his mom for leaving him behind. He lost a part of his tongue due to cancer, but explains the memories he had of his mother, Sherri, through the years. As he talks, Jared said that his mom made the best decision, as he was well taken care of. When he was 3 years old, he found out that Sherri was his biological mom. He went through magazines that were published from Japan and saw pictures of his mom on them. Jared's parents tried to make arrangements for him to see his mom, but Sherri would send him back. There were times that Sherri had Jared visit her, though. In the middle of the episode, Jared said that he was still angry at his mom, but that changes at the end of the episode. Deborah said that women in the 80s were trying to prove a point in wrestling, but it was a difficult task for them in doing so. It seemed as if they were told to suck it up and do their job. Some wrestlers in the WWF who were good friends with Sherri or worked with her put in a good word for her. By 1987, Moolah still had the women's title and Vince decided to put the belt on Sherri. The 80s was the peak of Sherri's career, but she lost her WWF Women's World title to Rockin' Robin. Sherri and Robin worked in another dark match, and in this episode you can hear someone through an audio saying that wrestling is fake. You can also hear Sherri saying that it is not fake and that it's real and it hurts. Jared would be happy seeing his mom wrestling on TV. Leroy hated wrestling because it took Sherri away. Sherri felt pain for leaving her family behind, but Jake said that she kept grinding. Backstage, she loved to smoke pot and hung out with the men in the locker rooms. One time, while she was high, Sherri kicked Robin in the throat, causing Robin to struggle breathing. In the dressing room, Sherri was sorry and hugged Robin. In 1990, Sherri was known as Sensational Sherri. During the 90s, Vince didn't really care much about women's wrestling as he wanted the women to be more like valets or managers. Sherri would wear tons of makeup and try to fit with the wrestler's gimmick that she was managing. Jared sometimes was on the road with his mom and calls her a legend. He said that wrestlers on the road are how legends are made. While she was managing some of the wrestlers, Sherri sometimes wrestled a little with their opponents and took lots of bumps. She took drugs for the body pain. Jared said that when he saw his mom do things, he never said anything because he thought that it would prevent him from seeing his mom again. He said that he doesn't recall seeing his mom sober. Sherri had also taken somas, which are muscle relaxers. Wrestlers would get addicted to somas in the 80s and 90s since it was handed around like candy. She failed a lot of drug tests due to marijuana at the time. In 1993, Sherri had a meeting with Vince due to her failing numerous drug tests, and Vince decided to finally let her go. After the WWF, she went to Smoky Valley Wrestling. Jim saw Sherri slow down as she was wrestling and drugged out of her mind there. It almost looked as though she was walking like a zombie. Sherri had thought that the drugs were making her wrestle better, but they were making her worse. She then goes to WCW, but Eric had never asked her why she was let go, as he hired Sherri because she was a good worker. When she was in WCW, Sherri managed Ric Flair and the Harlem Heat while taking more bumps. Things were not easy for Sherri in WCW as she was lost and uncertain. She was let go due to being under the influence over there and could not perform well out in the ring. Deborah said that maybe Sherri was let go due to not performing well, but she also said that the men should have also been let go, like Sherri was, since the men also did drugs at that time. During the 90s, Sherri got addicted to OxyContin. She then got married to a man named Robert Scroll in 1997. Sherri lived a normal life after WCW, but was taking pills even though she wasn't in pain. Robert was not a good husband as he put a wedge between Sherri and her son Jared. Jared said that Sherri would hold him and beg for his forgiveness, but he said that Sherri didn't have to. The last time Jared saw his mother was in the WWE Hall of Fame in 2006. She was the second woman to be inducted, as Fabulous Moolah was the first woman to be inducted in there. Jared was glad that his mom was still around for as long as she could stay. Sherri didn't see the Hall of Fame as an accomplishment, but rather that she wouldn't be able to wrestle anymore. The last time Kathy talked to Sherri was on the phone when Sherri was in the best mood. On the phone call, Kathy said that Sherri was drinking sweet tea with her mom. During their conversation, Sherri told Kathy that she might go back to the WWE, but will have to get surgery for her back and train the women wrestlers. However, on June 15, 2007, Sherri died. Jake felt empty when he found out that Sherri had passed away. Jared said that Sherri didn't deserve to die the way she did. In the episode, they said that the night before she died, Sherri was very happy. The autopsy reported that Sherri died of a drug overdose. When she had her funeral, Jake, who at the time was also having drug problems, showed up to the funeral drugged out. Jake said in his goodbye speech to Sherri that how dare she leave him behind since he was at his lowest at the time. To this day, Jake cherished Sherri. Jim still has a picture of Sherri that she had given him from a fan festival. Jared kept the letters that Sherri had written to him over the years, as he shows us in this episode. He says that Sherri and his stepmom were okay with each other as his stepmom raised Jared as her own child. The stepmom's name is Pat, and she hugs Jared in this episode. Jared calls Pat Sherri's tag team partner. Pat calls Sherri an awesome woman. Since the episode aired, Jared says that he doesn't hate Sherri at all. In an old clip, Sherri wants people to learn from her mistakes. Interviewers for this episode are Jake the Snake Roberts, Eric Bischoff, Jim Cornette, Kathy Fitzpatrick, best friend of Sherri, Leroy Gonzalez, ex-husband of Sherri, Robin Smith, also known as Rockin' Robin, Deborah Maselli, also known as Medusa or Alondra Blaze, Jared Gonzalez, son of Sherri, and Pat Gonzalez, Jared's stepmom. Interesting facts about Sherri is that at one point her ring name was Peggy Sue, as her other ring names through the years were mostly Sherri. Her last appearance in a wrestling promotion was TNA Total Nonstop Action, where she was managing Bobby Roode. Sherri refused to go ice skating and instead saw a wrestling show for the first time, which got her inspired to be a wrestler. Fabulous Moolah gave her the name Sherri Martel. In 2000, she had a short run in WCW and lost 2 matches there. Her last match was in 2005 in a 4-way tag team match, in which she sadly lost. Ted DiBiase inducted Sherri in the WWE Hall of Fame. Sherri died in the state that she was born in, which is Alabama, and was cremated. I give this episode a 10 out of 10, as it was very authentic and didn't miss a lot of information, as it explained Sherri's story. It was honestly a great episode, especially seeing Sherri's son, Jared, as he seemed positive even after everything that happened between him and his mom. I hope he lives a great life, as he seems to be happy and strong. It takes a lot of strength for a person to forgive an absent parent, because a lot of people usually get angry for being abandoned. But Jared seems to be okay with everything. I don't hate Sherri, but she did the best she could for her son. If anything, she deserves more recognition in WWE, as she worked her butt off, much like Eddie Guerrero. I always wondered, how did she get all that makeup on her face? They did a Mae Young tournament, why not do a Sensational Sherri Battle Royale? They did call the Women's Battle Royale at WrestleMania Fabulous Moolah, but then they had to get rid of it due to Moolah's controversial past. Other than that, Sherri will never be forgotten for her hard work in wrestling and managing. She did so much throughout her career, and I hope people will realize how much she has done for the women's division. Definitely a must-watch for people that want to know more of women's wrestling. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Comment, like, or subscribe, and take care of your mental health and everyone around you, and I'll do the same too. Bye, guys.